All right. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. If you are coming into the show, I definitely appreciate everybody that joins. And before we get into anything, a little bit of housekeeping. You guys are going to see this hat uh, under the video. If you're interested in getting one, right now they're $27. I said once we hit 10 sales, then we're going to go ahead and raise the price. So right now it's $27. We're in the holidays. If you know somebody with a bald head and their head is not shaved and they need to cover it, go ahead and get them one. If you know somebody that's interested in the channel and they want to support what it is that, we got going on, go ahead and get one or get one for a fan of the channel as well. All right. Today I want to talk about this affordability crisis that's going on in America because it's everybody's, it's on the top of everybody's priorities, right? Whether it be Democrats or Republicans, everybody is talking about it, but we can't agree on what the actual solution is, right? So we have an interview with Nikki Haley's son. I forgot his name, but he was recently on Tucker Carlson's show, and what they were talking about was the fact that Nick Fuentes is rising, and Tucker Carlson is trying to find out why Nick Fuentes is becoming so popular, right? So we already talked about that interview. I've done a review of pieces of that interview before. So I'm not going to get necessarily into that, but I do want to talk about this entire affordability thing because we have people like Donald Trump that ran on making things more affordable. He keeps talking about how for Thanksgiving, the Walmart turkey was 25% less than it was last year. We had Zohran Mamdani, who recently won it in early November, and he ran on an entire affordability campaign as well. But obviously, we have two different sides of the spectrum, two different views on how we get to affordability. So Nikki Haley's son, I believe he said he was 24 in that interview with Tucker Carlson. So he's fairly young. He's in that Nick Fuentes sort of age range, the people that would listen to him. And he gave his thoughts on what we need to do to fix America. And on this Fox News interview, he talks about his perspective on affordability. So I want to get into that. We're going to talk about that. And I also want to get into Elon Musk's answer for poverty because he thinks that AI is going to solve it. I'm less inclined to believe that, but you know, this dude is allowed to go into the government and have records and all of this access to information. So maybe he knows something I don't know. But let's get into this interview with Nikki Haley's son. Give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. I got to go into my playlist. I'm a little unprepared, but that's okay because we want to get right into this. Let me go ahead and fix that. I'll bring this up here. All right. So I got what we need. Here we go.
So his mom is one of the Republican Party's most famous women, and now Nikki Haley's son, Nayland Haley, is speaking out with a warning to his party, saying, quote, "My issue is that the Democrats are listening to the younger people, and it's time for the Republicans to do the same." Gen Z conservative activist
I'm going to tell you right now, Democrats don't feel like the Democratic Party is listening to them. I don't think either party feels like that, but everybody is looking on the other side of the aisle and they're like, oh, well, those people are listening to their constituents, but these people are not. That doesn't seem to be the case, actually, because when Trump ran, I know we're pausing before there's any content in there that we can react to. But if you look at what happened just with Zohran Mamdani, he said 1 out of 10 Trump voters voted for him because it was about affordability, right? So these people that voted for Donald Trump thinking that he was the answer started looking somewhere else and like, okay, maybe this guy's the answer. So it's not necessarily that anybody is actually listening to their constituents.
Nayland Haley joins us now. Nayland, thanks for getting up this morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
So Charlie Kirk had this to say about young people embracing socialism. I want to play this flashback for you. Let's watch it.
How do we get more young people under the age of 35 to have equity in the system?
Yes.
Not the Democrat version of equity where they want to have redistribution, but actually, are they paying a mortgage? Do they own stuff? Or are they permanent renters? A permanent renting class in this country is the prerequisite, is the leading ingredient for radical politics that nobody wants to see. We need to reinvigorate the ownership economy. And then all of a sudden, when you own stuff, you're less likely to burn down a Wendy's and vote for candidates like Zohran Mamdani.
So, Nayland, what do you think about that?
Well, the goal, at the end of the day, the goal of
That was one of the few things I agree with Charlie Kirk on. When people when they own something or when they feel more invested in it, they want to see it be successful. I'm not saying that people that rent or anything don't want to see America be successful, but when you own like land or you own a property or you own a business, you're like, okay, what can I do to continue to grow what it is that I have, either for myself, my family, or my community overall. So I agree with him on that. I don't agree with all of this stuff about burning down buildings and all that. People were doing that in protests. They shouldn't have been doing it, but they were doing that in protests. I don't agree with any of that.
every generation is to leave it better than you found it, right? And not only are we not doing that, we're going in the opposite direction. It's getting worse. I think the first step our leaders need to do is admit that we have a problem. And right now, I haven't heard any Republican leaders talk about the issues that young people are facing. Congress has been nothing more than a glorified nursing home. They either don't know the problems that we're facing or they're ignoring it. And to be honest, I don't know which one's worse. You look at jobs, 1/3 of recent college graduates are unemployed. My friend group graduated, all with great degrees in great schools, and not one of them has a job, not one. So it's frustrating because they did everything that they were supposed to do. They put in the time, the effort, the money to get educated, and they don't have a job to show for it. They have to compete with foreign workers who are willing to work for half their salary and AI, which is a supercomputer, you know? So how can we compete with that? You look at the housing market.
Real quick, I want to talk about this education thing and who can get jobs and who can't, because admittedly, it's a huge issue, right? But when we start talking about, do people deserve a job or do you deserve an opportunity? This is where you start getting into that conversation that Republicans always have about picking yourself up by your bootstraps. You can't tell somebody pick yourself up by your bootstraps, or, you know, you don't believe in DEI, but you want to be included in the job market just because you did these things rightfully, right? You went to school, you got a degree, you took your time, became educated in the field. But now you're saying, oh, well, I deserve to have this job. And I believe that. I believe that you do. But for so long, you've had this Republican rhetoric like, oh, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. If you're not succeeding, quote unquote, in life, and what we define as success, or what's culturally defined as success, is having a job, having a house, having a car, all of these different material markers, right? Republicans have said for so long, if you don't have these indicators of quote unquote success, then you're a bum or you're lazy or it's your fault. And to a certain extent, I believe in personal responsibility 100%. But then we also have to look at this system that is like, we talk about capitalism, and while it is a thriving system, it's also a self-eating organism. Because if you incentivize people, make as much money or get as much profit for as little payout as you can, then you get the type of system that we're experiencing right now, where he's saying, oh, these jobs are being shipped overseas, or all of these jobs are being given to AI. People are being replaced. So since 2022, even in 2025, we've seen people like Amazon, Netflix, all Meta, all these different, like the 7 tech companies, those 7 big tech companies, they've done all of these layoffs because they've been able to replace things like junior engineers or warehouse workers with machines or with AI. So you can't, on one hand, as a Republican, tell people, oh, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. If you're not successful, it's your fault. And then also say, okay, well, I want to have some sort of opportunity. I'm owed something. It can't be both ways. I do believe that you're owed something. We live in a society. We give money to this government. It is supposed to be to the benefit of all of us, right? To some certain extent. I'm not saying the government needs to take over everything or we need to be given handouts from the government, but they do owe us something because we pay into that system. And even if this one specific person doesn't pay in, They are part of our society and they deserve to reap the benefits of a thriving society. So those are my thoughts on that. Let's get back into what he thinks about this housing situation.
And the average first-time home buyer in America is 40 years old now.
Yep.
5 years ago, it was 33. My parents bought their first house for $90,000 in the late 90s, and now it's probably worth over $400,000. So we're facing a lot of issues, and I think some things that we need to do is we need to ban H-1B visas, make sure corporations are hiring a certain number of Americans, and make sure they act in the interest of the American people, not just for themselves. I think that we need to stop subsidizing illegal immigrants for housing and instead maybe look into subsidizing Americans for first-time home buyers for housing.
I am interested in the. He said that his parents bought their first house for $90,000. It's probably worth about $400,000 now. I am interested in one. Ooh, I am not doing too hot on this part right here. I am interested in if his parents have additional properties, because you said, oh, well, they own this one. And part of people's thinking around why housing is so fucked up right now is that people are buying multiple homes. So I am interested in that. I don't know what his family situation is, but his mom is in Congress. She's been there for a long time from what I understand. So maybe they have a bit of money. Maybe they were able to buy real estate or boost their portfolio on the stock market. I'm not necessarily sure, but that would be an interesting thing to look into, to get a full understanding of their situation and how they got there.
And not allow corporations and the Chinese Communist Party to buy entire neighborhoods of single-family homes.
So, Nayland, you hit a lot of points there. And I think one of the things that has not been addressed by a lot of Republicans is they feel like a lot of young people just want free stuff, but you're speaking directly against it. You're saying these young people, they actually work very hard. They've gotten a degree, but they feel like the American dream isn't attainable to them. What would you say about that?
Right. No, that's absolutely correct. It feels like it's getting less and less attainable with each passing day. And look, I don't like socialism, but we also need to acknowledge that you can be against free market neoliberalism and not be subscribed to Mamdani-style socialism. Capitalism is a very broad thing. We need it to work for the average everyday American, not just for the elites and corporations. And when you look at Gen Z, over half of Gen Z has positive views of socialism, and it's because socialists, the democratic socialists, are actually reaching out to young people. So if the Republicans do that,
it's because the system is fucking failing. For as long as this system has been in place and it's been working, we're getting to the point where it's becoming a self-eating organism. We're getting to the point where Elon Musk is looking to have $1 trillion net worth. We have 42 million people in this country, 12% of our population, that is on assisted subsistence program, SNAP. 42 million people. And I think the average, they said, is something like $187 a month. That 42 million people on average get $187 a month just to feed themselves. Those are the basics. And that's literally the basics: food, clothing, shelter, and water. And if we can't get that thing right, but we have somebody that is looking to be a trillionaire, there's something seriously broken in the system. And I'm not saying that I believe in socialism. I've said that multiple times. I don't think that you put yourself in a good position when you hand over your ability to feed yourself, clothe yourself, house yourself, protect yourself over to somebody else. Where you're saying, okay, well, can I have some more? Like you're lining up at the beginning of the month and saying, can I have some more? And we have to have some individual responsibility. But we're getting to the end game of this capitalism thing when jobs are being shipped overseas because those people will take less money, whoever those people are. I'm not identifying a specific group, whoever they are, they will take less money to do the job. And you're saying, okay, well, we'll build these machines instead of paying people. You go to Walmart, they have like 20 aisles and 3 of them are open. And then they have self-checkout and the line is backed up through the back of the store. So, we're getting to the end. We're getting to the end game of this thing, and socialism may not be the answer, but something has to happen. And we're going to transition now because I want to show you guys this thing from Elon Musk where he thinks that AI is going to be the savior. He thinks humanoid robots or AI is going to be the savior, and it's going to lead us into this next phase of humanity. And I don't necessarily know that that's the case, right? At some point, when all the jobs are taken and there's no income and people are not able to buy things, where do we go as a society from there? Are we going to start getting back into this system where, we're having multi-generational living, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I believe in multi-generational living. It's probably good for your kids and good for your parents as well. But we've sold this American dream for a long time that you're supposed to have your own house, your own car, a white picket fence, all of these indicators of what we've defined as success. What happens when people can no longer afford that because all of the jobs have gone overseas or it's gone to a robot? And we've optimized so much for our society that we're supposed to be living in a utopia, but nobody can afford to buy into that, right? That's the reason why this entire thing with Elon Musk is a problem. Not because he built something and people are interested and he's getting a financial reward for that. That's how it should be. If I have a better product than you and I want to work harder than you, I should have more reward than you. I believe in that system. I don't want to go to work and, house somebody that spends all day walking the street doing whatever the hell they want to do. I don't want to live in a system like that. If I work harder than you, I should be able to advance further than you, in my opinion, right? That's the system I believe in. But as we optimize for all of this AI stuff, we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, what happens after that? What happens when all the jobs are taken, everything is automated, and you don't have to think for yourself, or you don't have to, like a type of Wall-E. If you guys remember the Wall-E movie, what happens when we get to that point? I don't know, but let's check out what Elon Musk has to say.
But AI and humanoid robots will actually eliminate poverty. And Tesla won't be the only one that makes them. I think Tesla will pioneer this, but there will be many other companies that make humanoid robots. But there is only basically one way to make everyone wealthy, and that is AI and robotics.
And we can't talk about robotics without AI.
But AI and humanoid robots.
So I don't know where that entire, I don't know what the entire clip is, but I did want to show you guys that. And I don't know what Elon Musk is talking about because we keep having this conversation about affordability. And if everybody has $1,000, the value of $1,000 decreases because the prices are going to increase to match the fact that everybody has $1,000. That's, So he's saying like, oh, AI is going to be the future. Robotics is going to replace all these jobs. Everybody's going to be able to be successful. I don't know how we get to that point. I don't know what the end game is. But Elon Musk also does not. I don't want anybody to have faith in him and trust him and be like, oh, this guy is the answer to all our problems, because he is not. There's literally a website of shit that Elon Musk has said that has not been delivered on. We can talk about the Tesla Roadster. We can talk about fully autonomous self-driving Teslas, self-driving cars that he said way back in the day. These things that he said was going to happen have not come to fruition. I just want to go through a few of these and let's see things that Elon Musk has said in the past that didn't turn out to be true. It says, uploading fully autonomous self-driving button any minute now. It says, given significant architectural changes, including fundamental improvements to pure vision, there's limited value in testing 8.x, hoping to upload v9.0 and button next month. This was back in 2021. This is fully autonomous self-driving, a promise that he made that he didn't deliver on. Another promise he made he didn't deliver on was, what was the name of that thing? Oh, the $2 trillion that he was going to save for the deficit. And then he's going to give everybody a $5,000 refund check, basically. Didn't happen. Another promise the guy said he can't deliver on. It says, adopting a bohemian life. I'm selling all physical possessions, will own no house, don't need the cash, devoting myself to Mars and Earth. Possessions just weigh you down. This was also 2020, during the pandemic. Now we're talking about him potentially being a trillionaire. So when we start talking about Elon Musk's vision for the future and um, the fact that he thinks AI and robots are going to eliminate poverty and everybody's going to be wealthy, remember that he's trying to tell you what the problem is and then sell you the solution. Oh, if you just buy my Tesla robot or whatever robot he's selling, then that's going to solve your problems. The same way that they said, oh, if you just vote for Donald Trump, that's going to solve your problems. Look around you. People's problems are not solved. People are in a worse situation every week. As I say time and time again, every week that Donald Trump is president, we're in a worse off situation. So if you think that Elon Musk is going to be your savior because he's some tech genius and, he's a great businessman, 100%, but he doesn't have all the answers, as evident by a literal website that goes through all the bullshit that this guy has said that has not come to fruition. And we all say bullshit, but people have so much stock in the things that he says. So I'm going to table it with Elon Musk. This entire video was about like affordability and where we go in the future. Just remember that it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. These people really do not have a plan and they don't really care. They're all self-serving. It doesn't matter if it's Mondani. It doesn't matter if it's Trump. Something has to happen in the immediate future that fixes the system. And I don't know what it is. I'm not saying that it's socialism. I'm not saying that it's exponentially raising the taxes on people that are rich. But this system is broken severely, and we're getting to the end game of capitalism pretty fast. And AI is only exacerbating that. So when Nikki Haley is listening to Nick Fuentes or Nikki Haley's son is listening to Nick Fuentes looking for a solution, or somebody's looking to Mamdani, or somebody's looking to Trump, and then he's going on Fox News and saying, hey, it may be the immigrants, or it may be AI, or it may be H-1B visa holders. We are feverishly looking for a solution, and nobody knows what it is. Nobody has a plan. The only plan that we have is, oh, we're going to invest in AI and we're going to fix the economy. It's a plan to fail. It's a losing plan, and it's going nowhere. All right, let's get into this next thing that I had to talk about. Let me find it. I don't even remember what. Oh. I had another video related to this this thing about affordability. Let me pull that up. I thought that was all that I had, but it is not. Okay, so before we get into this is a video with Fox News, and they're talking about the holiday shopping. They're talking about holiday shopping, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, people not having the money to spend, but let's let them do their reporting, because I definitely have comments about that related to this affordability crisis that we're experiencing.
Holiday shoppers are starting off strong, spending a record $11.8 billion online on Black Friday, but Gen Z seems to be holding back as more young shoppers are turning away from big holiday spending, and this is raising concerns for major retailers. Fox Business host Shara Kasoni is.
When I saw that, when I listened to that 20-second intro, I was like, what the fuck are these people talking about? Retailers are concerned because people are not spending money. But retailers are also not going to increase the wages of all of these workers. When we talk about Target, when we talk about Walmart, when we talk about Amazon, they're like, oh, people aren't spending the money. But they're also not in a rush to give people money so that they have money to spend. They're also not in a rush to hire. They're looking for other businesses that are hiring people, that are employing people, to pay them money, to pay those potential customers so that they can turn around and go to whoever it is. It doesn't just have to be Amazon, Target, and Walmart, whoever it is. They're like, oh, we don't want to hire workers. We want to lay people off and turn to AI and not increase wages, but we want somebody else to hire them, give them a job so they can spend money with us. And I thought that was the most retarded thing that I've ever heard, because we're getting into, people can't afford the necessities. We're getting to the point where people are being priced out of not even just owning a home, renting a home. I talk about all the time how I saw a 1,000 square foot home that was built in 1947 in Bubblefuck, New York. I don't even know where it was. It was like, some rural area, and the rent that they were trying to have for that house was $2,100. I understand that it's New York and all of that. I don't know how far outside of the city it is, but what kind of income would you have to afford a $2,100 home in wherever New York, the middle of nowhere, New York? And then they expect people to turn around and be like, oh, well, let me go holiday shopping. No, absolutely not. These people can't even afford, like Gen Z, Gen X, whatever the newest generation is that's in the workforce. These people can't even afford rent, groceries, and to sustain themselves. 42 million people on Snap. And they're worried about, oh, well, we're not getting enough holiday shopping revenue. That is not that's not a top priority for people. They're trying to find out how to feed themselves, how to make it through the month. So I just wanted to share that little bit. I'm going to let them talk, see what other thoughts they have. But when I saw that, I was like, why are we concerned about the fact that people are not holiday shopping if they can't even eat, if they can't clothe themselves? Like, the system is broken. College graduates, they said this is the highest number of college graduates, highest percentage of college graduates that have not been able to enter the workforce. So that's where we are as a society. People can't get jobs, and their businesses are like, oh, well, why are they not spending money with us? This is a cause of concern for us. Yeah, I bet it fucking is.
Here with the very latest. Cheryl, it appears to be a bit of a mixed bag here.
It really is. So overall, $18 billion was spent on Black Friday, but you've got this new survey finding that 34% of Gen Z is planning to cut back on their holiday spending, and that is a problem for the economy and for the retail sector. So here is the average.
They're not just cutting back, they're fucking broke. They don't have the money. It's not that, oh, well, I have $1,000 to spend. I'm only going to spend $600. I don't have the money in the first place. That's really what it is.
Average expected holiday spending by Gen Z for 2024, $1,282. This year, $850. So they're definitely cutting back, as you can see by those numbers. And here's the thing, is that retailers, they want to hook them in young, Carly. They want to get you when you're young so that when you start to make money in your later years, that you'll come back and spend on the same brand. They want those loyal customers, and that isn't really happening. Who only group right now, this is going to make you laugh, the only group right now that plans to spend more for this entire weekend leading into this week and for the holidays is Gen X.
Oh, really?
Think about it, right? That's the 45 to 60-year-old group. They're making.
Oh, you mean the people that are already worked through their entire career, got retirement, and are doing phenomenal in the stock market? Yeah, those people probably do have disposable income. It's not very surprising. But I'm going to table this entire thing about this affordability. Like I said, Nikki Haley's son, he went on Fox News and said, hey, we're losing all our jobs to immigrants and AI and outsourcing and all of these different places that he's blaming. And to a certain extent, I understand the sentiment. I understand the frustration. People want to live better than their parents and just be able to sustain themselves. I'm not talking about living lavishly. We're talking about food, clothing, shelter, and water, whatever that looks like, whether that is basic or it's luxury. People want to be able to sustain themselves. They don't want to be relying on the government or beholden to the government. But we're getting to a point where I keep saying it. I said it too many times on this live stream already. We're getting to the end game of capitalism, and we have to find a solution for the people that are coming after us. So that's where we're going to table this affordability conversation. I want to get into an update about the Trump White House and these strikes in Venezuela. So I did a video on that recently, but I have not been able to take a look at the latest information. What I understand, the White House is, well, this title, we'll just get into it. This is over from Axios. It says, White House defends Hegseth and second strike on boat near Venezuela. So if you remember, if you don't remember, let me catch you up. There was a couple of strikes that happened in early September on some boats off the coast of Venezuela. The Trump administration said, oh, these people are narco-terrorists, however they define that. They're narcotics traffickers and they're also terrorists. They designated all these gangs from South America and, south of north of the United States as terrorist groups, right? Trinidad, Aragua, there was another one. that I can't remember the name of. So they're like, oh, well, we can bomb these people and kill them. It doesn't matter. Well, actually, it does. So there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that that boat strike that happened in early September, there were 11 people on the boat. They got 9 of them. They said, oh, well, 2 people are hanging on to the riffraff. Let's go back and double tap them. It's been a lot of discussion that that is completely illegal. They want to know who gave the order. Pete Hegseth said, Pete Hegseth has been kind of ambiguous about saying that, oh, I gave the order. He's been hitting at it, or it's been hinted at, but he hasn't said, oh, I gave the order. It was okay to do. What they said is nobody acted outside of the law, which is up for debate. So it says the Navy Admiral and not Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth directed a September strike on the suspected drug boat near Venezuela, where the military was repeatedly ordered to kill survivors, the White House said Monday. The stuff that I've been seeing about this is the Trump administration threw this guy, the Navy Admiral, under the boat. The reporting that I initially saw on this said that Pete Hegseth said, kill them all. Like damn near verbatim said, kill them all. As in, hey, those 2 survivors, we don't want them surviving. Their lives don't matter. They don't have due process. We're not going to detain them. We're not going to see what was actually on the boats. We're not going to question them and identify the source of their supposed drugs. None of it. We don't want them. You can take them out. That was the reporting that I got. Now they're saying, oh, the Admiral unilaterally made a decision to do that. Right? This is why those 6 Congress people made that video and said, hey, don't do anything illegal. You may be held responsible for it. You may be held accountable for your actions. I know the Trump administration is greenlighting all of this stuff, but you may be held accountable. This is why they had to express that sentiment, which I don't think they should have made the video. I don't. But this is what they were talking about. It says why it matters. The White House defended the legality of the attack, but Congress has vowed to investigate, with some members warning that, if substantiated, the deaths could violate the laws of war. Which means what? As somebody potentially is going to be on the hook for that. It's not going to be Pete Hegseth, because even if it is, Trump is going to pardon him or commute the sentence or do whatever he can to get his guy off the hook. But if you think they won't throw that Navy Admiral under the bus, especially when they start saying, oh, especially if it's going to shine a dark light or a bright light on the Trump administration and like cast a shadow on his administration, they're going to say, oh, well, that guy never had the authorization to do that. We didn't tell him to do that. They will throw him under the bus, right? Trump is out for himself. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If that means that they have to out that admiral and say that he did it by himself and Trump had no idea what was going to happen, they will do that. Because when interviewed, Trump said, oh, well, I wouldn't have done a second strike, but that's what they did. That was Trump's entire sentiment around the second strike that happened. So he will throw that guy under the bus. Let me see what this person said. It says, howdy. End game of capitalism might be right. Yeah. We're definitely at the end game of capitalism. I don't know what's going to happen, but, I'm here for the ride. That's for sure. All right, let's get back into this thing. It says, on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Frank Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. That comes from Carol Levitt. That's the press secretary. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. In response to a question asking her to confirm that the order for a second strike came from Bradley, Levitt said Bradley was well within his authority to do so. That's up for debate, man. I don't know if this guy is going to end up going to prison or he's going to end up receiving any reprimand for it, but it's very clear. I was thinking about this earlier. Even when you're a junior enlisted, when you're in basic training, whatever basic training that is, in my basic training, many, many moons ago, they told us very plainly, you cannot double tap someone. If you have somebody that is defenseless, they're unarmed, they're injured, you have a duty to help that person, right? You could have been firing at that person 5 seconds ago, but once they're unarmed, once they're defenseless, you have to help them. You have to take care of them. And this is a very, very similar type of situation. You can't just blow somebody up on a boat. You're like, oh, they're surviving. Well, we don't want them to survive. We're going to hit them again. You got people floating on wreckage. They can't go anywhere. They don't have any weapons to retaliate. And we don't even know that they're actually what they call narco terrorists. We don't. I know the Trump administration is trying to say, well, we designated them as this, so that's what they are. But where's the evidence of that? Where are the trials? Where are the paperwork? Where's the names? I was watching, I think it was TYT, the Young Turks. It's a news organization. They're progressive over there. And they were talking about how if it was like Al-Qaeda, actually, I think it was Breaking Points. They were talking about how if it was like Al-Qaeda or ISIS, you would have names of specific targets and say, okay, these people are doing this thing. We're going to target them. We're going to take them out. When you hit a boat strike on 11 people and you can't identify any of them, that just looks plain and simple like murder. Okay. So that's why we're having this entire debate about whether Pete Hegseth is going to be on the hook, whether this admiral is going to be on the hook. This is a serious issue. We cannot conduct business like this. I know that we're a big, powerful military and we can swing our nuts and drag our nuts and do whatever we want to do. But when you start saying, okay, well, to hell with the law, I'm just going to do what it is that I want to do, other people are going to start playing that game as well. And then just like this affordability thing, we get to a point where we can't dial it back. And we don't want to go there. All right, it says the Defense Department's Law of War Manual uses shooting shipwreck survivors as an example of an illegal order that service members are obligated to refuse. For example, orders to fire under the shipwreck would be clearly illegal, the manual states. Very specifically written in the doctrine, the law of war. You can't shoot shipwrecked boats or people. Very plainly. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So Carolyn Levitt, she could spin it and say it's well within their rights or well within their purview to do that. It is not. We literally have black and white, and that's what we live by in the United States. We live by the black and white. If you did this, you go to jail. If you didn't do it, you're free to go. It says, when prompted by a reporter to explain how the strike is not an example of a war crime, Levitt said the strike was conducted in international waters in accordance with the law of armed conflict. Just because you designate somebody as a terrorist doesn't necessarily mean that you can start blowing them up willy-nilly, right? You have to actually identify these people. There has to be a process in which those strikes are approved. And they can say, oh, well, Pete Hegseth said that it was okay. Very clearly, the law that we all live under, these people are not above it. At least they're not supposed to be. These people are not above the law, and the law very specifically says that's not okay. It says Bradley is a Navy SEAL and the head of the United States Special Operations Command, according to his leadership bio. So they get into, I guess they're getting into some of his history here. He said he deployed into Afghanistan after 9/11. Now, so the people that are investigating this, the people that are looking at this, it is the Senate and House Armed Services Committee. And this is what they had to say. It says, Levitt also said the administration has conducted 13 bipartisan briefings to Congress and has allowed their offices to review classified legal opinions and other related documents. A bid to block Trump from unilaterally ordering the strikes failed in the Senate last month by a 49-51 vote. The administration has assembled thousands of boots on the ground and has fighter jets, early warning aircraft, sub-hunters, and roughly 185 long-range Tomahawk missiles, according to independent estimates. Trump has also hinted that the U.S. might shift to stopping drug traffickers on Venezuelan land very soon, but later clarified that reporters shouldn't read into his decision to close Venezuelan airspace as a sign of imminent action. Yeah, so that's where we are. They're looking to make a land invasion. They're looking to go and take people out in Venezuela. I talked before about how they're saying it might be about oil, may or may not be about oil. At this point, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really care. I think that the U.S. should mind its own business. I think that if there is something going on in Venezuela and they need a quote unquote regime change, it needs to happen by the people of Venezuela. We started this show talking about affordability and how people can't afford houses, how we have 42 million people on SNAP. We have plenty of problems here that we need to solve immediately. We have this AI problem that's propagating as all of these NVIDIA chips are being rapidly developed. When are we going to get some time spent on our issues as Americans? I don't know. Venezuelans potentially bringing drugs in. I don't think that they are, right? I don't necessarily think that our huge drug issue is coming from Venezuela. But even if they are, let's use the people that are on the border, Customs and Border Patrol, and our Coast Guard that monitors the shores. Let's use them to actually do their job and stop those folks. Not going over there and preemptively striking, not going over there and staging boats and potentially cutting off their airspace and potentially doing a ground invasion. It's none of our business. It really isn't. I think that's where I'm going to go ahead and close the show for the day. You guys can let me know your thoughts. If you have any suggestions about how we can make the show better, absolutely drop them down. If you have anything that you want to talk about, I don't know if I'm going to go live tomorrow or Wednesday. We can absolutely talk about whatever's on you guys' mind. I will get educated on it. If I'm not, we can go through it. We can talk about it. But that's been the show. Once again, I will link the product. I will link the hat down in the description. And I appreciate you guys always for attending. So I will catch you next time. Peace.